I pressed play, and for the first time in 25 years I heard her voice again. Not a memory, not a dream, a real voice, waiting for me, hidden inside a dusty tape. My hands were shaking. The tape recorder was ancient, covered in basement grime, with buttons so worn I could barely read the labels. I found it in a cardboard box behind my father's old workbench, tucked between paint cans and forgotten Christmas decorations. I almost threw it away. Almost. But something stopped me. Maybe it was the weight of it. Maybe it was the label on the cassette tape inside, written in faded blue ink. Just 3 words. Her handwriting. For Daniel. Later. My name is Daniel. I'm 42 years old, and my mother died when I was 17. I never knew this tape existed. My father never mentioned it. Not once in 25 years. Not during the funeral. Not during the quiet years that followed. Not even on his deathbed 3 months ago, when he had plenty of time to tell me everything. So why now? Why did he hide this? I sat on the cold basement floor, the tape recorder in my lap, my finger hovering over the play button. Part of me wanted to run. Part of me wanted to smash the thing against the wall, because here's the truth nobody tells you about grief. It doesn't get easier. You just get better at pretending it does. 25 years. That's how long I'd gone without hearing her voice. I'd forgotten the exact sound of it, the pitch, the rhythm. I had memories, sure, but memories lie. They smooth out the edges. They turn people into saints or ghosts, and my mother had become both. I pressed play. There was static first, crackling, the hiss of analog tape spinning through ancient machinery, then silence. Long enough that I thought maybe the tape was blank. Maybe this was just another cruel joke from the universe. But then I heard it, a breath, a small clearing of the throat, and then her voice so familiar it felt like being punched in the chest. Daniel, sweetheart, if you're hearing this, it means I'm gone. And it means your father finally gave you this tape. I asked him to wait. I asked him to wait until you were ready. I hope you are. I hope you can forgive me for what I'm about to tell you. I stopped the tape. My heart was slamming against my ribs. Forgive her. Forgive her for what? My mother was a good woman, everyone said so, the neighbors, the people at church, my teachers. She volunteered at the food bank. She made lasagna for families going through hard times. She never raised her voice, never drank. Never did anything that would make you think she had secrets. She died of cancer. Ovarian. Stage 4 by the time they found it. 6 months from diagnosis to funeral. That's what I'd been told. That's what I'd believed my entire adult life. But now, sitting in that basement with her voice coming through a 25-year-old tape, I felt something shift. Like the ground beneath me wasn't as solid as I thought. I pressed play again. I need you to know that I loved you more than anything in this world. You and your father. You were my whole life. But there are things I never told you. Things I couldn't tell you. And now that I'm gone, I need you to understand why I made the choices I made. I need you to know the truth about who I was, about who I am, about what really happened. The tape hissed. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing, uneven, like she was trying not to cry. Your father wanted to tell you years ago, but I made him promise. I made him swear he'd wait until you were older, until you had a life of your own, a family maybe, something stable. Something that couldn't be destroyed by the past. I looked around the basement. The walls felt like they were closing in. What was she talking about? What past? My childhood was normal. Boring even. Suburban house, public school, little league baseball, family dinners every night at 6. My parents never fought. They never even argued. They were the kind of couple people envied. Quiet love, steady love. Or so I thought. Daniel. I was 17 when I met your father. Did you know that? 17. The same age you were when I died. Isn't that strange? How life circles back like that. I didn't know that. She'd never talked about how they met. Whenever I asked as a kid, she'd just smile and say something vague about a church picnic. My father would nod and change the subject, but I wasn't 17 when I became a mother. The tape crackled. My stomach dropped. I was 16, Daniel. 16 years old, and you weren't my first child. I stopped breathing. The basement went silent except for the hum of the tape recorder and the ringing in my ears. This wasn't possible. This didn't make sense. I was an only child. I'd always been an only child. I had a daughter before you. Her name was Sarah, and I gave her away. The words hit me like a freight train. I stared at the tape recorder, at the little wheels spinning inside, pulling her confession out of the past and shoving it into my present. A daughter. I had a sister. Somewhere out there in the world, I had a sister I'd never met. A sister my mother gave up, a sister nobody ever told me about. Why? Why would she hide this? Why would my father keep this from me? I know what you're thinking. I can almost hear your voice in my head, asking all the questions I won't be there to answer. So I'm going to tell you everything. The whole story. From the beginning. And when I'm done, I need you to do something for me. Something important. Something that might change your life. Or hers. Or both. The tape stopped. Not because it ended. Because I pressed stop. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the recorder. I sat there on that cold basement floor, surrounded by my father's tools and my mother's secrets, and I realized that everything I thought I knew about my family was a lie. And this tape, this voice from the grave, was about to tear it all apart. I didn't press play again for 3 days. The tape recorder sat on my kitchen table like a bomb. I'd wake up, see it there, and feel my chest tighten. I'd make coffee, avoid looking at it, and leave for work. But all day long, at the office, in meetings, driving home, all I could think about was that voice, those words. I had a daughter before you. Her name was Sarah. Sarah. I had a sister named Sarah. My wife noticed something was wrong. Jennifer always noticed. 20 years of marriage will do that. She asked if I was okay. If it was about my father's death, if I needed to talk. I told her I was fine, just tired, just processing. I couldn't tell her the truth, not yet, because I didn't even understand it myself. On the 3rd night, Jennifer took our kids to her mother's house for the weekend. Some birthday thing. She asked if I wanted to come. I said I had work to catch up on. She kissed my forehead and told me not to stay up too late. The moment her car pulled out of the driveway, I went to the kitchen. Poured myself a drink, sat down, and pressed play. My mother's voice filled the empty house. I'm going to start at the beginning, Daniel. Before you, before your father, before everything fell apart. I was 15 years old, living in a town I know you've never heard of. A small place. The kind where everyone knows everyone and secrets don't stay secret for long. My parents were strict. Church 3 times a week. No boys, no parties, no life outside of school and Sunday service. She paused. I could hear her shifting, like she was sitting in an uncomfortable chair. But I was a normal girl. I wanted what all girls want. To feel special, to feel seen. And there was a boy. There's always a boy, isn't there? His name was Michael. He was older, 18. He had a car and a smile that made me feel like I was the only person in the world. He paid attention to me in a way nobody else did. He made me feel grown up, important, like I mattered. I know how this sounds. I know you're probably thinking I was naive, stupid even. And you're right, I was. But when you're 15 and someone makes you feel like that, you don't think about consequences. You don't think about anything except how they make you feel. Her voice cracked, just slightly, but enough that I could hear the weight of what was coming. We were together for 6 months. Secret, of course. My parents would have lost their minds, so we'd meet after school, behind the old church on Maple Street. In his car, in places where nobody would see us. And then I got pregnant. I closed my eyes, tried to imagine my mother as a 15-year-old girl, scared, alone. It didn't fit with the woman I remembered, the woman who packed my lunches and helped with homework and never seemed afraid of anything. I didn't tell Michael right away. I was terrified. I kept thinking maybe I was wrong. Maybe it was just stress. Maybe it would go away. But it didn't go away. And by the time I finally told him, I was almost 4 months along. He disappeared, Daniel. Just like that. One day he was there, telling me he loved me, making promises. The next day he was gone. His family moved. No goodbye, no explanation, no forwarding address. I was alone, 15 years old and pregnant, and I had nobody. There was a long silence on the tape. I could hear her breathing, shallow, painful. I tried to hide it, wore baggy clothes, avoided my parents. But you can't hide something like that forever. My mother figured it out when I was 6 months along. I remember the look on her face, not anger, not disappointment, just this cold, hard shame, like I'd stained the family name, ruined everything. She didn't yell, that would have been easier. Instead, she just made a phone call, and 3 days later, I was gone. My father drank the rest of my whiskey, poured another. The ice clinked against the glass, the only sound in that empty house besides my mother's confession. They sent me to a home, one of those places for girls like me, unwed mothers. That's what they called us. Like being unwed was the problem, like the shame was ours to carry alone. It was 4 hours from my town, far enough that nobody would know, far enough that I could disappear. They told people I went to live with an aunt, a sick relative who needed help. Nobody questioned it. Or maybe they did and they just didn't care. I lived there for 3 months, with a dozen other girls, some younger than me, some older, all of us with the same story, all of us waiting. The home was run by nuns. They weren't cruel, exactly, but they weren't kind either. They treated us like we were broken, like we needed to be fixed. We had chores, we had prayers, we had counselors who talked to us about adoption like it was the only option, the noble option, the right thing to do. And I believed them, because what else was I supposed to do? I was 16 years old, I had no money, no education, no support. My parents made it very clear, if I kept the baby, I was on my own. They wouldn't help. They wouldn't even acknowledge her. Her, my daughter, Sarah. My mother's voice softened, just for a moment, like she was touching something precious and fragile. I gave birth on a Tuesday, February 14th, Valentine's Day. Isn't that ironic? The day of love. They let me hold her for an hour, just 1 hour. She was so small, so perfect. She had dark hair and these tiny fingers that wrapped around mine like she was holding on for dear life. And I wanted to keep her. God, Daniel, I wanted to keep her so badly. But they kept telling me I couldn't, that it wouldn't be fair to her, that she deserved a real family, a stable home, 2 parents who could give her everything I couldn't. So I signed the papers. I gave her away. And I never saw her again. The tape hissed. The silence stretched so long I thought maybe that was it. Maybe that was the whole story. But then she spoke again. Quieter now. Almost a whisper. I tried to forget. For years I tried. I finished school. I met your father at that church picnic I always told you about. He was kind, patient. He didn't judge me when I told him about Sarah. He said the past was the past, that we could build something new. And we did. We got married. We had you. And for a while I thought maybe I could move on. Maybe I could be happy. Maybe I could be the mother I wasn't allowed to be the first time. But you can't outrun guilt, Daniel. It follows you. It lives in every birthday you celebrate, every milestone, every moment you realize your first child is out there somewhere, living a life you'll never know about. I thought about her every single day, wondered who she became, if she was happy, if she hated me, if she even knew I existed. And then when you were 12 years old, something happened, something that changed everything. The tape stopped, not the end, just a pause, like she needed a moment to gather herself. I sat there in my kitchen, staring at the recorder, my heart pounding. What happened? What changed? I pressed play. I found her, Daniel. I found Sarah. I found her by accident. Or maybe it wasn't an accident. Maybe after 12 years of wondering, the universe finally decided to answer. It was a Saturday. You were at baseball practice. Your father was at work. I was at the grocery store doing something completely ordinary when I saw her. She was bagging groceries at the checkout line, 17 years old, long dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, brown eyes, a small scar above her left eyebrow. I knew it was her before I even read her name tag. I just knew. The way mothers know. The way your body recognizes something it created, even after years of separation. Her name tag said, Sarah Mitchell. Mitchell was the adoptive family's name. I remembered it from the papers I signed, the papers they let me see for just a moment before they took her away. I stood there, frozen, my cart half full, people moving around me, and she looked up and smiled. Just a polite customer service smile. She had no idea who I was. "Can I help you find anything, ma'am?" "Ma'am?" She called me ma'am. My mother's voice broke. Actually broke. I could hear her crying on the tape. Soft, muffled sounds. Like she was covering her mouth. I'm sorry, give me a moment." There was shuffling, the sound of tissue being pulled from a box. A shaky breath. I wanted to tell her right there. I wanted to grab her hands and say, "I'm your mother. I'm the one who gave you away. I'm the one who's thought about you every single day for 17 years. But I didn't. I just smiled back and said, "No, thank you." And I left. Abandoned my cart in the middle of the aisle and walked out of that store like a coward. I sat in my car for an hour, just sat there, shaking, crying, trying to figure out what to do. I could have driven away, could have pretended I never saw her, could have gone back to my safe little life with you and your father and my secret guilt, but I couldn't. I couldn't walk away, not again. So I went back the next Saturday, and the Saturday after that. I'd buy a few things. Stand in her checkout line, make small talk. She was friendly, polite. She told me she was a senior in high school, that she was planning to go to college, that she wanted to be a teacher. She had dreams, Daniel, beautiful dreams. And she had parents who loved her. I could tell by the way she talked about them. Her mom packed her lunch every day. Her dad taught her how to drive. They went to her volleyball games. They were everything I couldn't be. And that's when the guilt became something else, something worse. Because I started to wonder, what right did I have to disrupt her life? What right did I have to tell her the truth? She was happy. She was loved. She had a family. Who was I? Just the woman who gave birth to her. Just the woman who signed the papers. Just the ghost in her origin story. But I kept going back, week after week. And one day, she recognized me. "Oh, hey, you're the Saturday lady. You always come in on Saturdays." She remembered me. This girl I gave away, this girl I abandoned. She remembered me. We started talking, real conversations, not just checkout line pleasantries. She told me about school, about her friends, about the boy she liked. And I told her about you, about my son who played baseball, about my husband who worked too much, about my ordinary guilty life. I never told her the truth. I couldn't, because by then I loved her too much to hurt her. The tape crackled. My mother's voice hardened. Became almost angry. "Your father found out after 3 months, I don't know how. Maybe he saw something in my face, maybe I talked in my sleep. But one night, he sat me down and asked me point blank if I was seeing Sarah. I couldn't lie to him, so I told him everything. And he was furious, Daniel. I'd never seen him that angry. He said I was being selfish, that I was going to destroy that girl's life, that I had no right to insert myself into her world after 17 years. He said I had to stop, had to walk away, had to let her live her life without me haunting the edges of it. And he was right. I knew he was right. But knowing something and being able to do it are two different things. So I made a deal with him. One more conversation, one more Saturday, and then I'd disappear. I'd let her go for real this time. That last Saturday, I went to the store with a letter in my purse. I'd written it the night before. Sat up until 3 in the morning trying to find the right words, trying to explain the unexplainable. The letter told her everything. Who I was, what I'd done, why I gave her away, why I couldn't stay away. It told her that I loved her, that I was sorry, that I hoped she could forgive me someday. I was going to give it to her at the end of her shift, just hand it to her and walk away before she could read it, before I could see her face change, before I could watch her realize that the Saturday lady who bought milk and bread and made small talk was actually the mother who abandoned her. But when I got to the store that day, she wasn't there. Another girl was working her register. I asked where Sarah was, just casually, just a regular customer asking about an employee. The girl's face fell. "Oh, you didn't hear." My mother stopped. The silence on the tape was deafening. There was an accident, a car accident, 2 nights before. Sarah and 3 of her friends were driving home from a volleyball game. A drunk driver ran a red light. Sarah died instantly. That's what they told me. That's what I read in the obituary 3 days later. 17 years old, beloved daughter, cherished friend, survived by her parents, David and Linda Mitchell. I wasn't mentioned. Of course I wasn't. I was nobody. I was nothing. I went to the funeral, stood in the back, watched her parents cry over the daughter I gave them. The daughter they loved, the daughter they lost. And I held that letter in my purse, the letter she'd never read, the truth she'd never know. My mother was crying again, deep, wrenching sobs that made my own chest ache. I kept that letter, Daniel, for years. I kept it as a reminder, as a punishment because I deserved to be punished. I had a second chance. I had months with her, and I wasted it. I was too afraid to tell her the truth, too selfish to let her go. Too weak to do either thing completely. And now she's gone. And I never got to tell her I was sorry. I never got to tell her I loved her. I never got to be her mother. The tape hissed. My mother's breathing was ragged. 6 months after Sarah died, I got my cancer diagnosis. And I knew it was punishment. I knew I was dying because I deserved to die. Because what kind of mother loses 2 children? What kind of mother abandons one and then stalks the other? What kind of mother keeps secrets that destroy everything? Your father wanted me to tell you before I died. Wanted you to know about Sarah, but I couldn't. I couldn't add my guilt to your grief. I couldn't make you carry what I carried. So I'm telling you now, years later, when I'm already gone, when it's too late for me, but maybe not too late for you. Because there's something else, Daniel, something I need you to do. The tape clicked, changed tone slightly, like she'd stopped and started recording again. Sarah's parents, David and Linda Mitchell. They never knew about me. They never knew Sarah's birth mother was watching her, loving her from a distance. But they deserved to know. They deserved to know that their daughter was loved, even by the woman who gave her away. I need you to find them. I need you to give them the letter I never gave Sarah. I need you to tell them I'm sorry, that I was grateful, that they gave her a beautiful life. Can you do that for me, Daniel? Can you carry this burden I'm leaving you? The tape ended, just stopped. No goodbye, no final words, just silence and static. I sat in my kitchen until sunrise, staring at nothing, feeling everything. My mother didn't just have a secret. She had a whole second life, a whole second daughter, a whole ocean of grief I never knew existed. And now she wanted me to finish her story, to find these strangers, to deliver a 17-year-old letter to parents who buried their daughter, to open wounds that had probably barely healed. I looked at the tape recorder, at the cassette inside, at my mother's handwriting on the label. For Daniel. Later. Later was now. And I had no idea what to do. I didn't sleep that night. How could I? By morning, I'd made a decision. I was going to find them. David and Linda Mitchell, Sarah's parents, my sister's parents. I was going to do what my mother asked, even though every part of me screamed that this was a terrible idea. Jennifer came home with the kids around noon. She took one look at me and knew something was seriously wrong. The kids ran upstairs. She sat down across from me at the kitchen table, right next to that tape recorder. "What's going on, Daniel?" So I told her. Everything. The tape. My mother's confession. Sarah. The accident. The letter. All of it spilled out in one long, messy confession of my own. Jennifer didn't interrupt. She just listened. And when I finished, she reached across the table and took my hand. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to find them. I'm going to give them the letter." She squeezed my hand. "Okay, then I'm coming with you." It took me 2 weeks to track them down. The internet made it easier than it should have been. David and Linda Mitchell, still living in the same town, the same house where Sarah grew up. where she lived her 17 years before that drunk driver stole her future. I found their address, their phone number. I could have called. Probably should have. But how do you make that phone call? How do you say, "Hi, you don't know me, but my mother stalked your dead daughter for 3 months and now I have a letter she wants you to read"? So Jennifer and I drove there instead, 3 hours north, to a town that looked like every other small town. Main Street, a few churches, houses with front porches and American flags. The Mitchell house was pale blue with white shutters. There was a garden in the front, roses, the kind that take years to grow, the kind that someone tends with love. We sat in the car for 20 minutes, just sat there, staring at that house. What if they hate me? What if they slam the door in my face? What if I'm making everything worse? Jennifer put her hand on my knee. "You're doing what your mother asked." That's all you can do. I grabbed my mother's letter from the glove compartment. The envelope was yellowed with age. My mother's handwriting on the front. To Sarah. Just those 2 words. A message that never reached its destination. I got out of the car before I could change my mind, walked up that stone pathway, stood on that porch, raised my hand to knock. The door opened before I could. A woman stood there, late 60s, grey hair, kind eyes. The kind of face that had smiled a lot once, before grief carved new lines into it. "Can I help you?" My throat closed. I couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Jennifer stepped up beside me. "Mrs. Mitchell, my husband has something he needs to talk to you about. It's about your daughter, about Sarah." The kindness left her face, replaced by something harder, protective. "Who are you?" "My name is Daniel Carter. My mother was Margaret Carter. I don't think you knew her, but she knew Sarah. And before she died, she asked me to give you something." I held out the letter. My hand was shaking. Linda Mitchell stared at it like it might explode. Then she looked at me, really looked at me, searching my face for something. "You better come inside." The house smelled like cinnamon and old photographs. Every wall had pictures. Sarah at different ages, school photos, sports teams, family vacations, a whole life documented in frames. Linda led us to the living room, called out for her husband. David appeared from the kitchen, tall, thin, the kind of tired that never goes away. They sat on the couch. Jennifer and I sat in chairs across from them. The letter lay on the coffee table between us like a grenade with the pin pulled. I told them everything, who my mother was, how she found Sarah at the grocery store, the 3 months of Saturdays, the letter she never delivered, the guilt that ate her alive, the cancer, the tape recording, all of it. I watched their faces change as I talked. Confusion, shock, anger, pain. Linda's hand found David's, gripped it tight. When I finished, nobody spoke. The silence was suffocating. Finally, David cleared his throat. His voice was rough, raw. "Your mother was Sarah's birth mother?" "Yes." "And she never told Sarah?" "No. She was going to. That last Saturday. But then, the accident." Linda's voice cracked. She was going to tell her the day after the accident. I nodded. "I'm so sorry. I know this must be—" "We knew." I stopped, looked at Linda. "What?" "We knew your mother was Sarah's birth mother." The room tilted. I felt Jennifer's hand on my arm, steadying me. "That's not possible. She said you didn't know. She said—" "We didn't know at first." Linda leaned forward, but after a few weeks, David saw them talking. He was picking Sarah up from work one Saturday. He saw your mother, saw the way she looked at Sarah, the way she talked to her. David picked up the story. Something felt off. So I asked Sarah about her, about the Saturday lady. Sarah said she was nice, that she came in every week, that they talked about normal things, but I couldn't shake it. So I did something I'm not proud of. I followed your mother to her car one day, got her license plate, asked a buddy of mine who works at the DMV to run it. When I found out her name was Margaret Carter, I didn't think much of it at first, but then I remembered. The adoption papers, the birth mother's name, Margaret Ann Carter. My chest felt tight. "You knew the whole time?" "Not the whole time." Linda's eyes were wet. "We figured it out after about 6 weeks, and we didn't know what to do. We talked about confronting her, telling Sarah. But Sarah was so happy. She was thriving. And your mother never tried to claim her, never tried to take her away from us. She just wanted to know her. So we let it happen. We watched from a distance. We knew about the Saturdays. We knew they talked. And we were okay with it. Because Sarah was ours. We raised her. We loved her. And if her birth mother wanted to see the beautiful person she became, we thought maybe that was okay. Maybe that was even right. David's voice dropped to almost a whisper. We were going to talk to your mother, invite her to have coffee with us, to figure out how to tell Sarah the truth together. We'd decided that if Sarah wanted a relationship with her birth mother, we'd support that. We were going to reach out the week after Sarah's volleyball game. The week after the accident. The words hung in the air like smoke. So your mother didn't know. She died thinking we never knew, thinking she failed Sarah. But she didn't. Linda wiped her eyes. Sarah talked about her all the time. The nice lady from the grocery store. The one who always asked about her games. Who remembered little things. Sarah liked her. I felt something crack inside my chest. My mother carried that guilt to her grave. She thought she ruined everything. Thought she was selfish and weak and destructive, but she wasn't. She was just a mother who loved her daughter. Both of her daughters. Linda reached for the letter. May I? I nodded. She opened it carefully, unfolded the pages. David moved closer so they could read together. I watched their faces as they read my mother's words. The apology, the love, the regret, the hope. When they finished, Linda was crying openly. David's jaw was tight, fighting tears. Linda looked up at me. Your mother wrote that she hoped we could forgive her, that she was grateful to us, that we gave Sarah a life she couldn't. She folded the letter carefully, held it against her chest. But we're the ones who need to ask for forgiveness. We knew who she was. We saw how much she loved Sarah, and we never told her it was okay. We never told her she didn't have to hide. If we had just reached out 1 week earlier. David put his arm around his wife, but they didn't. None of us did. And now they're both gone. We sat there, 4 people bound by 2 dead women, by secrets and regrets and love that came too late. Finally, Linda stood, walked to a bookshelf, pulled down a photo album. She brought it over, sat next to me, opened it. These are pictures of Sarah, her whole life, her first day of school, her first volleyball game, her prom, everything. She turned the pages slowly, showing me the sister I never knew, the sister my mother loved from a distance. We'd like you to have copies if you want them, because Sarah was your sister, and your mother was part of Sarah's story, even if it was complicated, even if it hurt. I looked at the pictures, at this girl who looked nothing like me, but was connected to me by blood and secrets and a mother we both loved in different ways. Thank you. My voice was barely a whisper. Linda closed the album, looked at me with those kind, grief-carved eyes. Your mother did the right thing, Daniel. She loved Sarah enough to let her go. Twice. That's not weakness, that's the hardest kind of love there is. And that's when I finally understood. My mother wasn't a coward. She wasn't selfish. She was just human. Flawed and frightened and trying her best with an impossible situation. She was just a mother, like any mother, loving her children the only way she knew how. We stayed at the Mitchell house for 3 hours, drinking coffee, looking at pictures, sharing stories about 2 women who were gone, but somehow still present in every word we spoke. Linda made copies of Sarah's photos while David told me about her, how she volunteered at an animal shelter, how she wanted to teach elementary school, how she had her mother's laugh and her father's stubbornness, how she was kind to everyone, even the kids other people ignored. Before we left, Linda hugged me, held on tight like I was something precious she'd almost lost. Come back any time. You're family now, Sarah's brother. That means something. Jennifer and I drove home in silence, processing, grieving, feeling lighter and heavier at the same time. I thought that was the end of it. I thought I'd fulfilled my mother's last wish, delivered the letter, made peace with the past. I thought I could finally let it go, but 2 weeks later, I got a phone call that changed everything. It was Linda. Her voice was shaking. "Daniel, I need you to come back. There's something we found. Something we need to show you. What is it? I can't explain over the phone. Please, can you come this weekend?" The drive back felt longer this time. Jennifer held my hand the whole way. Neither of us spoke, both of us afraid of what we were about to discover. Linda and David were waiting on the porch when we arrived. Linda's eyes were red. David looked like he hadn't slept in days. They led us inside, to Sarah's room. I'd seen it briefly during our first visit, frozen in time. Still decorated like a teenage girl lived there. Posters on the walls, trophies on shelves, a purple bedspread. But now the closet was open, boxes pulled out, papers scattered on the bed. "We've been going through her things." Linda's voice was tight, really going through them. "We couldn't before, it was too painful. But after you came, after we read your mother's letter, we felt like maybe we were strong enough." She picked up a shoebox from the bed, handed it to me. "We found this hidden in the back of her closet, behind her winter clothes. We never knew it existed." I opened the box. Inside were letters, dozens of them, handwritten, dated, all addressed to someone named M. My hands started shaking before my brain caught up. "Start with the one on top." David's voice was heavy. "That's the first one." I pulled out the letter, unfolded it. The date at the top was from 6 months before Sarah died. The handwriting was young, looping, careful. "Dear M, I don't know if I'll ever give you these letters. I don't even know if I should be writing them. But I need to tell someone, and I can't tell my parents. I can't tell my friends. So I'm telling you, the woman from the grocery store, the Saturday lady, I know who you are." The words blurred. I had to blink to clear my vision. I figured it out 2 months ago. It wasn't hard once I started paying attention. "You look at me the way my mom looks at me. Like I'm the most important thing in the world. Like you're afraid I might disappear if you look away. And you ask questions, specific questions, about my birthday, about my adoption, about my life. Questions that sound casual but aren't. So I did some research. I asked my parents about my adoption. They've always been open about it, but I never cared much before. I never needed to know. But suddenly I did. They showed me the papers, the non-identifying information, birth mother's age, circumstances, location, and I did the math. It's you, isn't it? You're my birth mother. I felt like I'd been punched. Jennifer made a small sound beside me. Linda's voice was barely audible. "Keep reading. I don't know what to do with this information. Part of me wants to confront you, to ask you why you're here, why now, what you want from me. But part of me already knows. You want to see me, to know me, to make sure I'm okay. And I get that. I think I get that. Here's the thing. I'm not angry. I thought I would be. I thought if I ever met you, I'd have all these questions, all this rage about being given away. But I don't. Because my parents are amazing. They love me so much. They gave me everything. And I know that adoption was probably the hardest thing you ever did. I know you were just a kid yourself. I know you thought you were doing the right thing. So I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to keep coming to work on Saturdays. Keep talking to you. Keep pretending I don't know. Because I think you need this. I think you need to see that I'm okay, that your choice wasn't wrong. Consider this my gift to you. The daughter you gave away, letting you be part of her life without the weight of the truth crushing everything. Maybe that makes me weird. Maybe I should tell my parents, maybe I should tell you, but I don't want to. I like our Saturdays. I like having this secret. I like knowing that somewhere out there, I have a birth mother who cares enough to buy groceries she probably doesn't need, just to see me for 15 minutes. So I'll keep your secret. And I'll write these letters, and maybe someday when I'm ready, I'll give them to you. But for now, this is enough. Love. Sarah. I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Sarah knew. She knew the whole time. Linda handed me another letter. This one dated a month later. Dear Em, I told my parents today. Not about you specifically, but about wanting to meet my birth mother. I wanted to see their reaction, to see if they'd be hurt or angry. They weren't. They said if I ever wanted to search for you, they'd support me. They said you probably thought about me too. That adoption doesn't end love, it just redirects it. I almost told them then, almost said, she's here, she's the Saturday lady, she's been here for months. But I didn't, because I realized something. This isn't just my secret anymore. It's ours, yours and mine. And I don't want to break it yet. I like watching you pretend to look at cereal boxes so you can stay in my line longer. I like how you remember little details from our conversations. I like how your face lights up when I talk about my volleyball games. You're proud of me, I can tell. And that's weird and beautiful and sad all at once. My mom is proud of me too. She comes to every game, makes me breakfast before school, helps me with college applications. She's my real mom in every way that matters. But you're proud of me too, and somehow there's room for both. I read through letter after letter, Sarah documenting her thoughts, her feelings, her observations. She wrote about wanting to tell my mother the truth, about being afraid of hurting her parents, about feeling guilty for keeping secrets from everyone. The last letter was dated 3 days before the accident. Dear Em, I've decided. I'm going to tell you. This Saturday. I'm going to say I know who you are, and I want you to know that it's okay, that I'm grateful, that you gave me life twice. Once when you were born me, and once when you gave me to parents who could raise me. I don't know what happens after that. Maybe we get coffee, maybe we become friends, maybe it's weird and complicated. But I want to try. I want you to stop carrying guilt that doesn't belong to you. I want you to know your daughter, the one you've been watching from a distance. She's happy, she's loved, and she thinks you're pretty brave for doing what you did. See you Saturday. Love, Sarah. The paper trembled in my hands. She was going to tell my mother. That last Saturday, the day that never came. David's voice was rough. She knew, Daniel. Your mother thought she was this terrible person who stalked her daughter and kept secrets, but Sarah knew, and Sarah understood, and Sarah was going to tell her it was okay. Linda wiped her eyes. We found something else too. In her school bag, the one from the accident. The police gave it back to us, but we never looked inside. We couldn't. She handed me a small envelope. My mother's name was written on it. Margaret. Inside was a card. Handmade. A drawing of 2 hands holding. Mother and daughter written underneath. And inside the card, in Sarah's handwriting, thank you for loving me enough to let me go. And thank you for loving me enough to come back. I see you. I've always seen you. Love, your daughter Sarah. She was carrying it. Linda's voice broke. She made this card for your mother. She was going to give it to her that Saturday, after her shift. She had it all planned out, but she never made it. The accident happened first. I stared at the card, at Sarah's handwriting, at the love pouring out of every word. My mother died thinking she failed, thinking she was a coward, thinking Sarah never knew how much she was loved. But Sarah knew. Sarah always knew. And Sarah loved her back. Jennifer was crying. Linda was crying. David had his face in his hands. And I just sat there holding this card that was supposed to heal my mother's heart, feeling the weight of timing and tragedy and love that came too late. My mother and Sarah. Both gone. Both carrying secrets they were about to share. Both planning to bridge the gap between them. And they missed each other by 3 days. 3 days. The cruelest distance in the world. I took Sarah's letters home. All of them. Linda and David insisted. They made copies for themselves, but they wanted me to have the originals. These belong to your mother's story too. Linda pressed the shoebox into my hands. Sarah would want you to have them. That night, I went down to the basement, back to where this all started. Back to the tape recorder and the dust and my father's tools. I sat on that cold floor again, but this time I brought Sarah's letters with me, and I read every single one out loud, to the empty room. to the ghost of my mother, to the sister I never met. I read them like a prayer, like an apology, like a bridge between the living and the dead, and when I finished, I understood something I hadn't before. My mother asked me to deliver that letter because she wanted David and Linda to know she was grateful, that she was sorry, that she loved Sarah. But she didn't know they already knew. She didn't know Sarah knew. She died carrying guilt that Sarah had already forgiven. And maybe that's the real tragedy. Not that they never connected, but that they did connect. They just didn't know it. They were both too afraid to speak the truth out loud, so they missed the miracle that was happening right in front of them. Sarah saw my mother, really saw her, understood her, loved her. And my mother saw Sarah, watched her grow into someone kind and whole and happy, watched her become everything she hoped she'd be. They had their relationship. It just wasn't the one either of them thought they were allowed to have. I looked at the tape recorder, at my mother's voice trapped inside, and I realized she'd given me more than a task. She'd given me a gift, the truth about who she was, not the perfect mother I remembered, not the sinner she thought she was, just a flawed, frightened, deeply loving woman who did the best she could with an impossible situation. She was human, beautifully, painfully human, and so was Sarah. This girl who figured out the truth and chose kindness, who protected my mother's secret because she understood that sometimes love means letting people hide until they're ready to be seen. I pulled out my phone, called Linda. She answered on the first ring. "Daniel, are you okay? I need to ask you something." Sarah's card, the one she made for my mother. Would it be okay if I took it to my mother's grave? There was silence, then a shaky breath. I think that's exactly what Sarah would want. The next morning, Jennifer and I drove to the cemetery. It was early. Fog still hung low over the headstones. The world was quiet, except for birds and wind. My mother's grave was simple. Margaret Ann Carter, beloved wife and mother, the dates of her too short life carved in granite. I knelt down, brushed away some fallen leaves, pulled out Sarah's card. "Mum." My voice cracked. I found her. I found David and Linda. I gave them your letter. The words came easier after that. I told her everything. About the Mitchells knowing, about Sarah's letters, about how Sarah understood, about how they were both planning to speak the truth the same week, about how close they came. And I told her I forgave her, for the secrets, for the lies, for being human and scared and imperfect. "I forgive you, Mum. And Sarah forgave you too before you even asked." I placed the card on her grave, weighted it down with a small stone so the wind wouldn't take it. "Thank you for loving me enough to let me go. And thank you for loving me enough to come back. I see you, I've always seen you. Love, your daughter Sarah." I stayed there for a long time, just sitting, just being, feeling the weight I'd carried for weeks finally start to lift. Jennifer knelt beside me, put her arm around my shoulders. "You did good. You finished her story." "No." I shook my head. I didn't finish it. I just discovered it was already finished. We just didn't know it yet. Over the next few months, something unexpected happened. The Mitchells became part of our lives, not in a forced way, not in a painful way, just naturally, like water finding its level. Linda and Jennifer became friends. David came to our son's baseball games. We had dinner together once a month, talked about Sarah and my mother, kept their memories alive by sharing them, and slowly I started to understand what Sarah meant in her letters, about there being room for both, for multiple truths, for complicated love. My mother was my mother. She raised me. She loved me. She shaped who I became, but she was also Sarah's mother, in a different way, in a secret way, in a way that mattered just as much. And Sarah was my sister, even though we never met, even though she died before I knew she existed. She was my sister, and she taught me something about forgiveness and grace that I'll carry for the rest of my life. 1 year after I found that tape, I went back to the basement, back to where this whole journey started. I picked up the recorder, held it in my hands, and I recorded my own message, for my kids, for Jennifer, for whoever needs to hear it someday. This is Daniel Carter, and I want to tell you about my mother, about my sister, about secrets and second chances and love that survives even death. I told the whole story, every part, the pain and the beauty and the heartbreak and the grace, and at the end I said this: if there's someone you love, tell them. If there's a truth you're carrying, speak it. If there's forgiveness you need to offer or receive, don't wait. Because my mother and Sarah taught me that timing is everything and nothing, that love doesn't need perfect circumstances, that connection can happen in grocery store checkout lines and in letters that never get delivered, and in cards that arrive 1 year late to graves instead of living hands. They missed each other by 3 days, but they didn't miss each other at all. They found each other exactly when they were supposed to. They loved each other in the only way they knew how, and in the end, isn't that what matters? Not the perfect story, not the clean ending, just the love. The messy, complicated, persistent love that refuses to give up even when everything says it should. My mother left me a tape, Sarah left her a card, and both of them left me a lesson I'll never forget. Love doesn't need permission. It doesn't need perfect timing. It doesn't even need to be acknowledged out loud. It just needs to exist. And that's enough. It's always been enough. I pressed stop on the recorder, labeled the tape, for whoever needs this, someday. And I went upstairs, to my family, to my life, to the people I could still hold and tell the truth to and love out loud. Because that's what Sarah and my mother would want. Not perfect love, not painless love, just real love. While there's still time. So here's what I'm asking you. Do you have someone you need to talk to? A truth you need to speak, a forgiveness you need to offer? Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until it's too late. Tell your story, speak your truth, love out loud. Because life doesn't wait, and neither should you. Drop a comment below. Tell me about someone you're grateful for, someone you need to call, someone whose story intersects with yours in ways you never expected. Let's honor the people we've lost and the people we still have by being brave enough to tell the truth. See you in the next one.